Hello, and welcome back to Alchemical Serenity, the podcast that takes you on a journey along the path, through the woods, across the fields and moors, down to the beach, where we can sit around a campfire and talk about the path you were born to lead in a witchy, spiritual and druidy way. Firstly, before we start the podcast today, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone for listening in. I really do value your support, and knowing people may be finding some answers or further information is wonderful. I also want to say a heartfelt thank you to my 4 friends who said, do it. And that's Jess, Emily, Alex and Sophie. If anyone listening really fancies leaving me a little positive comment on the platform you're listening in on, that would be fantastic. And it goes a long way to let the platform know that you like my podcast, and it helps it to recommend it to other people. And also, why not follow me? I don't always post a new podcast on a particular day, so you'll get a notification when I do. And if you are new here, then thank you for listening in, and I hope you find some answers or something witchy, spiritual or druidy. So this week's podcast is all about the next festival on the wheel of the year, Beltane. Beltane is the gateway to summer, and this year it falls for us in the UK on the actual bank holiday Monday of May Day. It's naturally all about nature, fertility and optimism for the coming season, and it goes by many different names such as Bealtaine, Bel's fire, and Beltaine is Gaelic for bright fire. It's the main celebration of spring, so if Imbolc saw the first few signs that the season was changing, Ostara or Albanalia brought in the first celebrations of spring, then this festival is full on, maxed out, spring in all its glory. It has been suggested that our ancestors of the Anglo-Saxons celebrated the solstices and equinoxes, whilst the Celts celebrated the season divisions, and in the 10th century, Cormac MacCarthy wrote, 4 great fires lighted up on the 4 great festivals of the Druids in February, May, August and November. I'm going to share with you some of the things I know about Beltane, some history, some witchy, some druidy, some crafty, and I really hope you enjoy our delve into this lovely day of celebration. Traditions around the country take place in different forms, from May Day Queen festivals to maypole dancing. When I lived down in the southwest of England, in North Devon, we were lucky to witness the traditions still taking place. In fact, it was important in one town of Great Torrington, where it still holds its annual May Fair Day, which takes place on the first Thursday in May and has done so since the 16th century. The day is all about celebration, and the local schools are all involved. Great Torrington Secondary School chooses the May Queen and her escorts from its pupils. Then Bluecoats Primary School children in years 3 and 4 do a display of country dancing, and years 5 and 6 are involved in the maypole dancing, and it all takes place in the small market square. It's part of the school's curriculum each year, which is a fantastic way and very much how education should be, in my opinion. Now there is a carnival. The fun fair arrives for the week, and it's a time for the whole small town to come together with bunting flowers and lots of merriment. North Devon is a beautiful place for tourists to visit, so if you're ever in that area at that time, around the first Thursday, then I highly recommend going and watching it. It really is a lovely day, and I actually miss it. As with all festivals, Beltane starts as the sun sets on the 31st of April, on May Eve. Here in the UK, in our past, the Druids would have prepared their fires on the highest point in their areas, creating a beacon. So, for example, Tara Hill in County Meath, Ireland, was home to the gods of Old Ireland, and every village would have a Beltane fire because winter was finally over at midnight on May Eve. Young men and girls made love in the woods on May Eve to bring fertility to the land, as well as themselves, and this custom was recalled in Rudyard Kipling's Tree poem, Oak, Ash and Thorn. Oh, do not tell the priests our plight, for he would think it a sin, for we have been in the woods all night, a conjuring summer in. and I think we can all work out what the conjuring in was. There are many different traditions, but one of our older ones is on Beltaine Eve, and villagers would head into the woods to collect the boughs of the white blossoming hawthorn tree, known as the May tree. They also collected flowers of bright colours, and at dawn would dance around the village houses, leaving floral tributes on doorsteps and windowsills, singing songs of summer. As a reward for this service of song and dance and ritual, they would expect to be gifted food and drink. For those who didn't leave them a tribute, it was likely their crops would fail that year. Everything about Beltaine is fertility, although one myth I do need to clear up, and I've actually read this in a book, is that in the past the maypole was seen as a phallic symbol, and the ribbons are that of the goddess winding herself over and around it. However, according to Professor Ronald Hutton of Bristol University, who is one of our greatest British historians on all things pagan, there is no proof in this country or across Europe that our ancestors saw the maypole as a phallic symbol. So if you've read this or someone's made you aware of it, it's completely false. I just needed to get that out there. And I don't know why somebody, twice I've read this in a book, and it just seems very, very ridiculous to say something like that. So the maypole. Colours of the ribbons traditionally should be red, blue, green, yellow, and white, representing the union of earth and sky, winter and summer, water and fire, and the spiralling dance weaves the life force and fertility into the earth. Now, May Day celebrations still take place all over Europe to this day, and despite them being banned in the 16th century by, guess who? Yes, those Protestants again, especially the Presbyterians. When the Restoration occurred in the 1660, common folk of London in particular put up maypoles at every crossway. So according to John Aubrey, he was the English antiquarian, archaeologist and writer in the late 1600s who collected and preserved folklore stories and customs. The Aubrey holes at Stonehenge are named after him, and he discovered the megalithic stones of Avebury Circle in Wiltshire. So the largest was a maypole in the Strand near the current St Mary le Strand church. The maypole there was the tallest by far, reaching 130 feet, which is about 40 metres, and it stood until being blown over by a high wind in 1672, when it was moved to Wanstead in Essex, and served as a mount for the telescope of Sir Isaac Newton. Beltane fires still take place today on beacons across the British Isles, so whether up a mountain or on a beach, it's still a wonderful time to party. The largest of these festivals takes place in Edinburgh on Calton Hill. It's a procession that starts at the National Monument, or Acropolis as it's known, and driven by the beat of a drum. At the head is the May Queen and the Green Man, with people dressed as characters representing the journey. It all ends up with a stage representation of the start of summer by the May Queen and the Green Man lighting a huge bonfire. It is completely unique, and it's another fabulous festival to get tickets for if you can. I'll leave links in the show notes. Many British festivals have their roots in the leftovers from the Roman occupation, one of those being the festival of the goddess Floralia or Flora. This festival starts on April the 28th for 7 days in the Julian calendar and began around 238 BCE to please the goddess. Helston Floral Day in Cornwall is all about the passing of winter and the coming of summer, and it takes place on May the 8th, unless that day falls on a Sunday or a Monday, then it's moved back to the Saturday. Helston is set ablaze with colour, flowers, bunting, the fun fair, and despite the Victorians banning it, miserable lot, it bounced back, and numerous dances wend their way through the houses and buildings in Helston as the Helston Fury Dance takes place, and much, much more throughout the day. So if you're in Cornwall around April the 28th, then go along to Helston and enjoy some springtime fun. Now we come to well dressing. In Derbyshire and the East Midlands of England, well dressing still takes place, and this is believed to go back to the Celts, and that Derbyshire, being full of hills and dales, made it more difficult for the invaders to find these wells and to stop it happening. The early Christian settlers were not happy at all with worshipping water, and they banished it in many places. Well dressing starts in May, and in Tissington in Derbyshire, it's one of the earliest to dress their wells with flora and fauna. You can find more information on well dressing online. I'm not sure if you've seen the invitations that King Charles has sent out to those attending his coronation next month. They are absolutely full of every symbol of Great Britain. Now, according to the palace, the motive of the Green Man, obviously ancient figure, British folklore, symbolic of spring and rebirth to celebrate the new reign, is at the bottom. The border is inspired by all the British wildflower meadows, so it's got lily of the valley, cornflowers, wild strawberries, dog roses, bluebells, and a sprig of rosemary for remembrance, together with wildlife including a bee, a butterfly, a ladybird, a wren, and a robin. And the flowers are grouped in threes, signifying the king becoming the third monarch of his name. There's a lion, a unicorn, and a boar. They sort of appear in the border itself with the flowers, and a nod to the coat of arms of their majesties, whilst the Queen Consort's arms are now enclosed by the Garter, following her installation as a Royal Lady of the Order of the Garter last summer. And I think they're absolutely beautiful. The bottom where the Green Man is, there's daffodils, which obviously signifies Wales because it's the flower of Wales. Then you've got a thistle in there. I did see a shamrock. There's oaks and oak leaves. Absolutely beautiful. It's really been well thought out, and I thought it is so lovely and British. It could have been something that was, a bit tacky looking and a bit goldy and a bit embossedy, but this is absolutely beautiful and just, I think, really signifies King Charles and what he believes in. And just one more bit about tradition, and this involves Morris dancing, and that's the Bonnie Green Garters danced and sung usually near a pub, because I've been led to believe that Morris dancers are asked to pop along to the village pubs to do quality control tests of beers, ales, and ciders, usually after dancing. The church tried to stop these dances too, but you can't keep a good Morris dancer down. They strike the earth with their staves of ash or oak to wake up the earth. So that's some of the history surrounding Beltaine. So what can we do now? What is sort of more modern crafting within witchcraft and druidry? We have things that are called associations, and these are items associated with each festival. So if you're wanting to do some magical workings, here's some of the items that you can use. So colours for Beltaine are red, green, and white generally. I know we spoke about different colours for the maypole, but these are the colours that you would use perhaps if you were going to do anything with some ribbons. Flowers would be lavender, early roses, angelica, cowslips or primroses, lilacs if they're around. Grape hyacinths are a good one too, bluebells, wild garlic, and some hawthorn blossoms, obviously, very important. Trees are oak, ash, and thorn. Herbs and plants that are useful this time, if you're going to do any plant work, would be hawthorn blossoms and their leaves, nettle and plantain. However, I'm not going to go into that now any deeper because a friend of mine who is a herbalist is hopefully going to come along at some point in the next few weeks. We're going to record a podcast together talking about a couple of herbs and things that you can do with them. Crystals would be clear quartz, rutilated quartz, tiger's eye and topaz, citrine, sunstone, red jasper, all colours of the sun. Foods to eat. Actually, there's quite a lot of food you can eat this time of the year because there's abundance, isn't there, of vegetables out there for food and whatever you really want to make. But bannock bread's a good one. Rhubarb crumble. Oh, rhubarb, lovely. Drink, anything. Really? I mean, we're celebrating, aren't we? So whether it's alcoholic or not, doesn't matter. But mead is a good one, which is made from honey. You could also make a May wine, or if you prefer, maybe a Beltaine lemonade, which is non-alcoholic and also great for the kids. Planting in the garden. I've said it before on a previous podcast. If you've got an area you can designate to bees and butterflies, this would be fabulous. We all know the plight of the bee and butterfly, and we all know we need especially bees to pollinate everything from a pea and a potato to apples and fruits. We cannot replicate what wild and honeybees do for us where food is concerned. But if you don't have a garden, then that's okay. You can grow plants on a windowsill. and indoor plants are fabulous for just clearing carbon monoxide that we breathe out. Check over your herb gardens and plant herbs as well to ensure that they're flourishing, ready for the season of cooking and any magical works you need to do involving them. Feed your indoor and outdoor plants. Now, I often forget about plants indoors, and although I water them as required, I do forget to feed them, poor things. So I've now chosen to only buy peace lilies because they're ones that I don't tend to drown. I'm not a kill something with my love, as some people do, they overwater them. But I found peace lilies are quite fantastic and I get on with them. If you can gather a small bough or two of hawthorn, of course, ask the tree if you can take it. Wait for its positive energy to reply. We should never just walk up to any plant or tree and just help ourselves. This is a negative energy of control and greed, and the plants and trees will return that energy back to us at some point. So instead, just connect and ask. Don't take too much and don't take from private land. Hedgerows are full of hawthorns at the moment, so a small amount would be wonderfully just added to a jar of flowers. And this could be from if you've got a garden flowers or if you've bought some flowers and placed either on your altar if you have one or somewhere where you can appreciate the flowers blooming. If you don't have the ability to light a fire at Beltane, then the next best thing is a dark green candle. If you can make your own, even better, but if not, just buy one, set it onto a safe stand and plate and surround it with a bit of sand, or even better, some earth or compost for safety purposes, obviously. Lighting a candle is just as significant as a bonfire. Hang ribbons from a tree in the garden. You could dedicate a particular tree for this if you can reach the boughs. If it's an oak or an ash and not too big, but if not, then perhaps you might have a hawthorn or an apple tree in the garden would be perfect. And you can just hang your green, white or red ribbons and let them just flutter in the breeze. You could also make a mini maypole. I've seen lots of ideas on Pinterest for these, but because all you need to do is just buy a twig and get some, buy a twig. You could buy a dowling rod or you could get a twig out the garden and just get some red, green and white ribbons. Attach the ribbons with either one of those push pins or a glue gun. And if you want to, you can make a round base for your pole to stand in or just use it kind of like as a movement wand in your hand. You could really go to town and go mad in the garden and be loud and proud and use one of those stakes if you wanted to that you put up against a young tree or a plant. And I've seen somebody do this in their garden and they just banged it into the ground and they attached wider ribbons and it really did look quite like a maypole and it was really pretty with all the ribbons fluttering in the breeze. Seeds, obviously, they represent new life, growth, abundance and good health. You could start your own veggie garden or just grow some microgreens on the window ledge. What about making some seed bread or cake? If you like crystals, then you could prepare a crystal grid for your altar. Good crystals, obviously, I've said before. I've given sort of, sunstone, red jasper, green aventurine, rose quartz, yellow citrine, amazonite, and use clear quartz to amplify them. Now, there are lots of books and lots of grids online, especially on Pinterest. But sometimes it's nice to just do what you feel comfortable with. Put your grid down how you feel you want to represent it or what comes to mind to you. That's a really nice way of doing things. So, to wrap up this festive Beltane podcast, I'm going to do a card pull from my Druid pack. So, my pack for doing this card pull, now I have to say, I'm not a tarot card reader. I have tarot cards. I have lots of different decks that I've worked with over the last 40 years. And I do like doing them for myself, and occasionally I will do them for friends if they ask me to. But it's tarot card reading I find is sometimes better if it's done personally. Get your own cards and work with those cards to build the energy with them. But this set that I've got is actually called the Druid Craft Tarot. And the pack was created by Philip and Stephanie Cargom. Philip was chief and scribe of the Order of the Bard, Ovates and Druids until about 2021. The illustrations on them are beautiful, by Will Worthington. So, combining two streams of Western pagan tradition of Wicca and Druidry, they've got powerful images that have appeared through the vast store of teaching and storytelling in our ancient past. So they're great cards to use as a gateway to our inner spiritual world, deepening our knowledge of self and earth to help guide and illuminate our lives. So I like doing these card pulls every now and again, is just by shuffling the cards, and then when I feel the right time to stop, I choose the one on the top. I will put the picture of the card that I pull onto Patreon, and I'm sure, if you want to pop along, I'll leave the link in the show notes. But you can find me at on Patreon as Alchemical Serenity, obviously, and you can go and then have a look at that picture, and you'll probably understand it a bit better. So I'm going to just shuffle these cards. So let's see what we come out with. All right, okay. I'm using only the smaller set of the 21 cards, because these are like the traditional tarot. So you've got things like the High Priestess, the Hanged Man, like the Hermit type, everything like, if you've had a traditional set of tarot cards, you'll understand from the past. There's the Moon, the Magician, and they're beautifully illustrated. So when I feel ready, let's just give these another couple of goes. And I'm going to take the card from the top right now. Let's have a look. No, honestly, this wasn't planned. This is exactly that. I've never actually had this happen before, so this has got to be right. The card that's come out is called the Lovers, and it is actually the card for Beltaine. I've never had that happen before. Normally, I do these card pulls and I think, oh, that's a bit strange. Why has that card come out? Now, obviously, as I said to you, I'm not a card reader. So what I'm going to do, I'm looking in the book to find the answer to what this card means, and I'm going to read that out to you. So the Lover's card, I'll give you a little brief description, but like I've said, go and have a look at it on Patreon. There are two bodies, shall we say, and the female is obviously the maiden. She's got her beautiful crown of flowers on. They look like hawthorn flowers, and the green man is represented by the gentleman, because he's wearing a headdress, but it's got two antlers in it, and I would say they are a conjuring in the summer. Or have been a conjuring in the summer, as Rudyard Kipling put it. In the background there is, I'm just looking, is that, it looks like it's not a deer, but I think it's representing, a deer, or something on that line. I'll have a look in the book in a minute. There are sigils all over this. There's the hawthorn tree, a massive big hawthorn tree. You can just see the corner of it, but it looks old and very ancient. There's lots of ancient stones. So let's have a look. Okay, so it's Beltane and the Mayflowers are in bloom. Oh, that's my husky. That is my husky complaining that I'm talking and paying absolutely no attention to her whatsoever. Shh. Shh. Dear me. Shall we start again? It is Beltane and the Mayflowers are in bloom. Lord and Lady, High Priest, High Priestess have joined together as divine lovers, conveying the idea both of the great rite of the union between God and Goddess, and of its reflection in the everyday world of romantic love between two people. In addition, the card depicts the union of two aspects of self, conscious and unconscious, inner feminine, inner masculine, while the divine self embodying this union is depicted as the white hind in the distance. So it's a white hind. See, I can't see it that well. Let's have a look. What else does it say? So an image of the conjunction between sun and moon appears carved on the stone beneath the two lovers, as does the symbol of the serpent and egg, and a version of which is found on the Druid altar stone by Hadrian's Wall in Cumbria. Let's see. Significance. So, what does it mean? Meaning is love requires surrender and surrender requires choice. So finding the lover's card in your reading may indicate that you have found such a love depending upon its position in the spread. So obviously for this, we're doing this as just a one card pull for Beltaine. So obviously that fits in with the whole theme of Beltaine. At the heart of all these ways lies the understanding that one of the great mysteries of life is that love requires surrender and surrender requires choice. And at every moment in your waking life, you have a choice. Often these choices are simple, but sometimes they can be profound and can provoke crisis in your life. People turn to the tarot to help them make choices at such moments, but the tarot is here to help you with insights and to help you explore the potential of each choice rather than to tell you what to do. So I thought that was really quite good. So the message of this card really is at every moment you have a choice. Love is at the heart of life, and all creation is born out of love. So, that's the end of my Beltaine podcast. I hope you've enjoyed listening into some of the ideas, some of the history, and I hope that if you do celebrate, let me know. It'd be lovely to hear what you do, whether it's small, large. Do you join with a coven of ladies or gentlemen and party the night away up on a hill? Do you light your Beltane fires? Do you go to Edinburgh? Wherever you are in the world, what are you doing? If you are in the southern hemisphere, obviously you are going to be celebrating Samhain. So what are you going to do for Samhain? If I'd love to hear from you and what you do, because we're all individual and we all do something that suits us and what we have in our store cupboards and what we have in our life and what suits us. And I think that's what is so wonderful about this craft, is that we can just use anything to connect to the energies of this time of the year. So thank you for joining me. I hope, again, as I've said, it's been useful, and I hope you're finding it useful to find your path. Looking for witchy ways to follow the natural path and remembering how to connect back to Earth's energies. And if you are a conjuring in over the Beltane weekend, I hope that your conjuring in is a wonderful time of love between you and your partner. And if you are single, I hope you can go and conjure in with the Earth and connect your heart and soul to everything about Beltane. And I will hopefully see you again soon. So with love, light, and many blessings, thank you again. And I look forward to the next podcast. See you soon. Bye-bye. And one last thing, just before we go, don't forget to join me on Instagram and Facebook as Alchemical Serenity, and you'll also find my podcast link. In fact, I'll link everything in the show notes. But if you're looking for more witchy ways or more ways down the Druid path, I'm going to be adding more onto Patreon and hopefully more to my Facebook and Instagram pages as we go along. So from me and the husky, who is now having a scratch on the floor because, clearly needs a little bit more attention. They are divas. Huskies are divas. And you can hear her, she's scratching. It's like, I'm going to get your attention, Mum, somehow. So from me and the husky, take care. Speak to you all again soon. Bye-bye.